Her husband left when she got pregnant. 7 years later, he saw the child. The day Emily told her husband she was pregnant was supposed to be the happiest day of her life. She stood in the kitchen, holding the small white test and shaking hands, her heart racing with excitement. When Daniel walked in from work, she ran to him with tears in her eyes and whispered, "We're having a baby." But instead of joy, his face slowly hardened. His smile faded like a light being turned off. Daniel stared at her for a long moment before letting out a bitter laugh. "Don't play games with me, Emily," he said coldly. She felt her stomach drop. "What do you mean?" she asked, confused. But Daniel shook his head and stepped away from her like she was a stranger. "That baby isn't mine," he said flatly. His words hit her like a slap. Emily felt her world shatter in seconds. "What are you talking about? Of course it's yours." She cried, her voice trembling. But Daniel had already made up his mind. Rumors from friends, his own doubts, and his growing distance had poisoned his thoughts. No matter how much she begged him to believe her, he refused to listen. Within a week, Daniel packed his bags and walked out of their small apartment. Emily watched him leave with tears streaming down her face, one hand on her growing belly. "One day you'll regret this," she whispered as the door closed behind him. But Daniel never looked back. 7 months later, Emily gave birth to a beautiful baby boy she named Noah. Life wasn't easy. She worked long hours, sometimes 2 jobs, just to keep food on the table. There were nights she cried herself to sleep, wondering how someone who once promised to love her forever could abandon her and their child so easily. But Noah became her strength. His smile, his laughter, and the way his tiny hand held onto her finger reminded her every day that she wasn't alone. As the years passed, the little boy began to grow, and people started noticing something strange. Noah had Daniel's exact eyes, the same smile, even the same way of tilting his head when he laughed. 7 years later, fate would bring Daniel face to face with a child who looked exactly like him, and in that moment, his entire world would stop. Comment Part 2. If you want to see what happened when the father finally realized the truth.